I'm excited to do this. I don't think we've ever had him on the podcast before, but from ESPN, ABC, it's Jesse Palmer, who is here on behalf of Tableau, which we will get to a little bit later. Pretty cool device for people like us that like to watch a lot of sports. Good to see you, man. What's up?
You too, brother. Great seeing you, bro. How we doing?
I'm good. I know that, throughout the season, looking forward to those SEC games with you and Tess. It's kind of where we'll focus on most of this, but I just want to start. Oregon gets it done at home against Ohio State. Texas continues to roll. I was talking about them earlier. I'm like, Texas feels like they have literally everything you need. If you had to today pick between Oregon and Texas, who would you go with?
It's so tough, bro, but I think you just said it, right? Honestly, I just don't see a weakness on Texas at all right now. I think all across the board on all three phases, really, but certainly on offense, defense, at every level, I think they've got dudes and they've got NFL dudes everywhere. And it hasn't mattered this year who plays quarterback, whether it's Ewers, whether it's Manning. The offense is playing at a very high level, and they've got balance offensively to run it and throw it. Playmakers all over. To me, just the most dominant team from an eye test standpoint. And you go out in the Red River rivalry this past weekend, and you're kind of waiting to see if there's a moment where they look mortal, and they don't. They just, in every situation, they just jump out on people. To me, still one of the most impressive, I think, performances I've seen individually this year probably was Quinn Ewers at Michigan way back at the start of the year against that defense with all the different pressures they bring. Just his ability to handle that environment and play at that level and that caliber was tremendous. And then kind of evaluating through Manning and the almost 3 games he played, I mean, there's virtually zero drop off. I mean, the talent level from the first team guys to second team guys all the way across the board, to me, is what makes Texas unique right now. And obviously, Oregon, super impressive what they were able to do this past weekend against Ohio State. And Dan Lanning is put together an unbelievable roster. I would just based on the dominance, I would just put Texas right now 1.
Yeah, I don't really have any argument with that one, but obviously very impressive with what Oregon did. So let's talk Bama. You had the South Carolina game, and I was really looking forward to that for obvious reasons. After the Vandy loss, they're at home. You figure they're going to come out. And look, South Carolina's good. They're not great, but they're a tough out if you've watched them this year, as I know you have. Mm-hmm. I even like their quarterback, who's kind of, a coin toss every drop back. But we know how good their talent is on defense. There's so many guys on defense that I really like. But I think it was an alarming game. Like it's as much as it was to lose to Vandy, who was much better, and who knows, could maybe even sneak into getting some votes here in the polls. To come out like that, and then just towards the end. So, the storyline, production meetings leading up to it. What is your sense of where Bama is right now?
Going into that game, I really expected Bama to be an angry team after what happened against Vanderbilt, obviously. And I thought they were going to try to come out and really make a statement in that game. And I think you're absolutely right about what you said about South Carolina. I think they're a much better 3-3 team than people think. They probably should have beaten LSU. They beat what's ended up being a pretty good Kentucky team now, and they smashed them early in the year. And they certainly could have won that game in Tuscaloosa. South Carolina is a good team. That is a really hard out. And after getting beat down by Ole Miss at home, they came to play. Bama's defense really worries me right now, and just their ability to get off the field. And against Georgia, you saw that in the second half when Georgia converted 5 for 5, I think, on 4th down, was just able to keep drives going. Vanderbilt went like 12 of 18 on 3rd downs. And they were able to just stay on the field. And in South Carolina, again, in just critical moments, 3rd and longs, whatever it was, just allowing big plays, big touchdown pass in the second half on a 3rd and long situation that they give up. And just things that can't happen. It doesn't feel like playoff caliber defense to me when you have those types of issues. And Ryan, it's crazy because when you look at their roster and you look at the dudes they have in the front 7, especially in the depth they have, the linebacker position, that might be the best linebacking unit in the entire country. It does make you scratch your head a little bit. And I think the secondary right now for me is probably the one position on that team that I focus on more and worry about more. And I know that was a huge question coming into this year because you lose Kool-Aid McKinstry and you lose Terry and Arnold in the first 2 rounds. You lose your safety to Ohio State. I mean, these are all big time guys. A lot of new faces and a lot of true freshmen right now getting a lot of reps in the back end, and they're giving up big plays. And when you look at the schedule coming up now, you got Tennessee with Thornton and with Brew McCoy, and then you got Luther Burden in Missouri coming in, and then you've got LSU with Kyron Lacey and those guys. Even Auburn's receiving group with Keandre Lambert-Smith and all those guys are so much better than they were last year. The secondary might be a real issue for this Bama team, and you just wonder if they have enough on that side of the ball to hold on.
Yeah, the linebacker part of it, like I kind of was like, what is up with this defense in the first half against USF? But I think USF's quarterback is just so tough that, if you're not ready for him, they button things up in the second half. And then once the Wisconsin game happened, you can say whatever you want about Wisconsin, but it looks like they've figured some things out here too. But like that Wisconsin game, like, okay, all right, here's Bama's defense. Here's the front. Here's 4. Here's 0. Here's 20. Like, okay, all of these guys now, there's just a hybrid of all of these different dudes attacking, and it's not going to be an issue. And then I felt the same way in the first half against Georgia. Milroe was fantastic against Georgia. I really didn't think he was the issue whatsoever with Vanderbilt. Like those guys were exhausted mentally trying to figure out where the handoff was going against Vanderbilt, and Diego just worked him for 3.5 hours. But I would say like there was so much Milroe hype post UGA. And as anybody who's ever listened to this podcast knows, I'm not necessarily like the biggest fan. I think he might be the best running quarterback in college football. I think Avery Johnson, maybe Kansas State's in the conversation as well. There's certainly other guys you could pick from that. But there's just moments in that South Carolina game where my Milroe doubt is confirmed. It's not both picks. It's the pick in the end zone. It's stupid stuff like running out of bounds and they're trying to run clock a couple different times. So the defense is the main concern here, but I felt like the Milroe post UGA hype was out of control. And I still think there's a limit. There's just going to be moments against certain defenses where I just don't know that he's going to be seeing it the way you need him to.
Yeah, well, it's interesting too. And listen, I mean, for people that haven't watched South Carolina play it, especially on defense, like that is legitimately one of the best pass defenses in college football. Forget just the SEC. Like Kennard, Stewart off the edge. Those are 2 future first-round picks coming off the edge, and that's going to be a problem for anybody. But I will say, man, like, in just listening to what you were saying, like watching film on Milroe this year and watching the Georgia game, which was tremendous. And I thought he was outstanding as well in the Vanderbilt game. But one thing, and we called the USF game earlier this year, if you hit Jalen Milroe early and you get a few sacks early, the eyes come down a little bit. And he stops kind of focusing so much on what's happening in the second level. And he kind of starts worrying about what's going on immediately around him. And he misses some stuff. And I thought in the South Carolina game, you mentioned the interception in the end zone, even the interception at the end of the first half, just floating balls over the middle of the field. Like that's not first round stuff. I certainly think Jalen Milroe has that. I think he's going to be that. I really do. I believe he has the talent to be that. But it's just part of the game where I still think if you're an NFL evaluator, I think there are question marks with Jalen Milroe with respect to that. If you hit him early and you hit him a lot, can he keep that ice water in his veins, keep his focus downfield, which is brutally hard to do. And so like you said, he's going to play some good defense, obviously in the SEC coming up. He's lucky he doesn't get Texas in the regular season, and he's not going to get Ole Miss's front in the regular season. He's not going to get Texas A&M's front in the regular season either. But that's a question mark, I think, for Jalen Milroe moving forward, no doubt.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, once those edge guys start getting to you from South Carolina, like it wrecks everything you're thinking about. And he's not going to be the quarterback that you'll see this season that goes through that. So let's talk a little Georgia. The expectations of them are through the roof. A couple weeks in, it's like, hey, there's a tier. It's Ohio State, it's Texas, it's Georgia, and then the Kentucky game, the Bama game. And, the Mississippi State game is just weird in general because they're maybe the worst team in the SEC, but they bring in a freshman quarterback who puts up some numbers and maybe it gets a little loose. Maybe Beck has, finally that breakout game, but we've been talking about their guys on the outside, maybe not being elite and then not having the tight ends that they've had in the past. I would not say like, okay, I have to reclassify Georgia here, but it's pretty clear that it's not Georgia and a gap and everybody else in the SEC halfway through.
I agree with you, man. It does not feel like Bama and Georgia and everybody else. To me right now, it feels like Texas and everybody else, honestly. And watching Georgia, with their offensive line and bringing in Trevor Etienne in the portal this year, like I really thought this was going to be a running game that was going to generate a lot of explosive plays and sort of be the perfect way to balance Carson Beck and what they were trying to do throwing the football. I don't think they've really been able to establish the physicality that Kirby Smart wants on offense. You mentioned the tight ends, man. To me, no Brock Bowers is the biggest thing. I mean, that guy was such an X factor. And I think, obviously, when we used to watch them play, you're like, yeah, he's a really good player. He's going to be a first round pick. The Raiders are going to love him. There's all this stuff you can do with him. But like, that was such a unique player in a unique position. And the way that Bobo and the way that coaching staff was using him at running back and jet sweeps and screens, he could just do so many different things that just defenses had no idea how to handle. I don't know if you could pick another dude, just thinking off the top of my head around the country, where you take him off the field and all of a sudden now everything they do from a schematic standpoint is different. And the way defenses play you is different. Normally it's like Caleb Williams. Like, what do we have to do to stop a quarterback and take away the things he does? How often do you say, well, we got to take away the tight end and all the different things they do? The versatility I thought he gave them on offense was really unique and special. I know, and Georgia's got the NFL talent and the guys. If they play their A+ game or their A game, A- game, that's going to be a hard out for anybody. Regular season, playoffs, whatever, but they don't look nearly as dominant as they've looked the last 3 years. That's for sure.
I went to LSU, USC. I left thinking, hey, both these teams are going to be good this year. But some of the things with LSU are kind of funny. The way the story has gone is you were worried about the defense. You were definitely worried about the secondary. If you like the talent in the secondary, you have to imagine by week 8, they're just going to be better based on reps alone. The linebackers have gotten a lot better. Even though Perkins goes out for the year, which sucks. But that win against Ole Miss, man, I kind of, after that was over, I'm like, man, Ole Miss should have won that game. And early on, Jesse, too, there was a couple shots. There was a deep shot at the center of the field where it looked like he was fair catching it for Ole Miss, and all of the secondary was just watching it happen. It was one of those pass plays that was so alarming for a defense where you go, I understand somebody's open, but
alarmingly bad.
Right. Like, how does that happen with 3 guys watching one receiver just in the middle of the field, 30+ yards down the field? However, Saturday night in Baton Rouge, we know it's a horror story for a lot of visitors, and it happens again. And the AP polls reflect that. So I don't know that we write off Ole Miss, but they don't have the win that they need after the Kentucky loss on top of everything else. And now LSU's back in the playoff conversation.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. And we were calling an LSU UCLA game a few weeks ago. And at the time, the big question, of course, was the defense and the secondary. You remember DBU? Like, is that not happening anymore? I mean, we're not like that. Just,
I want to actually go through this. You'd be good at this. I was thinking maybe Stanford Steve as well. It's just going through every school that says we're this. We're tight end you, we're linebacker you, and then say whether or not they're worthy of having it. You can't just have like a couple down years for. I know Texas for a while was trying to say they were DBU, and then I think Miami's claimed like 7 different positions where you're like, I think that's a lot. I like what you said, but yeah, you're right. I mean, that UCLA first half, I'm thinking, is this going to be just an awful year down there? Like, what is up with these guys?
It's
with
just
the
like,
talent?
Like you can't throw post routes down the middle of the field and have a dude fielding a fair catch like in the middle of your secondary. You can't. Derek Stingley Jr., Tre'Davious White, Honey Badger, Patrick Peterson, those guys are like freaking out in NFL locker rooms right now based on what they're seeing. And it's not just coverage too, Ryan. It's tackling as well. And it's coming downhill. Like in the secondary, if you miss a tackle, that's a house call. And so, as bad as it's been defensively, I think on offense, I do think they picked it up. I'll tell you a guy that I don't think enough people are really talking about is Garrett Nussmeier. And just how well he's played at the quarterback. Yeah.
That throw to the middle of the field for the touchdown on Saturday night was just the anticipation on that throw. Like, that's the NFL stuff people get excited about, even though the entire night was just deep shot, hoping one of the 4 connects.
And then, like, everybody, obviously, you lose Jaden Daniels, and everybody's like, "Whoa, what's this offense going to be? It's going to be boring. It's traditional. They're just going to be handing it off, and he's going to have to try to make it, get it done from the pocket." He has been playing so incredibly well, and his ability to anticipate throws. Like, when you watch the film, Ryan, of Garrett, so many times in games, he's able to get it out. I mean, he doesn't have Jaden's escapability, so he has to rely on the clock in his head and just throwing balls way before receivers are out of their breaks and just understanding coverage, picking spots downfield to lay the ball into is remarkable. As a former quarterback myself, I can tell you, anticipation is something that I think sometimes is inherent. It's not easy to teach. It's not a thing that you can rep it in practice and you can talk about it all you want. I think some guys got it. I think some guys don't. Garrett Nussmeier has it, and every single week, and his offensive line is really good. They may have the best combination of offensive tackles in Campbell and Jones in the entire country, but he's under duress a lot. He's got to get rid of it early. And he does it every single week. It's remarkable. Like his NFL evaluation, watching him play, he's got a lot of stuff that a lot of NFL teams are going to want. I also think he deserves credit too, Ryan, because we're in this era now of college football, especially as a quarterback. If you lose the competition in the offseason or you get benched in the season, portal, like automatically. And how often do we see quarterbacks jump twice, sometimes 3 times? We've seen dudes go 4 times, just hopping all over, like Emory Jones, like DJ Uiagalelei. We see guys just like moving all over the place. Garrett Nussmeier has stayed loyal to LSU through 2 head coaches, lost the job remember he lost it to Max Johnson back in the day in the offseason. And then Jaden Daniels happens. You get him in from Arizona State. So now you're out of luck. And he's stuck it out at LSU, believing that's his best opportunity through 2 different coordinators and offenses. And now it's paying dividends. Like, I think Garrett Nussmeier is one of the most unsung players right now for a lot of different reasons. But the Ole Miss game was like the icing on the cake, and hopefully in a big audience, in a big window, people got a chance to finally see that.
Do you like LSU more than Bama today?
Today, that's a great question. I think I do. I really think I do, which is crazy. But based off of the way where I think LSU's offense is trending, I think head to head, and they're going to play at Death Valley, I think, in a couple of weeks coming up. Yeah. I mean, I would take LSU right now based on how Alabama's looked the last 2 weeks. Yeah.
Who do you like better today, Tennessee or Missouri?
I'm going to go just Tennessee. Missouri's game against Texas A&M scares me a lot. Just, a couple weeks ago, like that you can't be a top 10 team and let that happen.
It makes me feel great about A&M. Like A&M, that was such a brutal, tough game. Opener against Notre Dame. Could have gone either way. I thought they stole back all the momentum. All the credit to Notre Dame for figuring it out. Hyped up beginning of the season. That place, prime time, the whole deal. But it was a quick like right off of them. Wigman goes down, but then Reed steps up, who was incredible against Florida and kind of kept it together. And now the way they've been playing, there's such an afterthought because of how top heavy the rankings were with SEC teams that I put at 12.
Yeah, no, dude, you're right. It's funny. In all the playoff projections, you don't see Texas A&M anywhere in the first round. And that's like the one outlier people are kind of forgetting about. You're right. Just because of that Notre Dame game, I think a lot of people wrote them off. Wigman back in. And by the way, Coach Elko's decision to put Wigman back in based on how Reed was playing, for those 3 games, it was a gutsy move. I think Wigman kind of paid it off and kind of showed you that in the Missouri game. He does a lot of great things. I also, just as being like an X's and O nerd, Mike Elko's 3rd down defense stuff is like NFL stuff. It's amazing. Like that defense is going to be a problem for any college.
What is it?
It's versatility and changing things up over and over again. You remember how like in college football, oftentimes there's a lot of defenses out there that just have a cheetah package, meaning they'll take 4 defensive ends, they throw them on the field, and they're like, deal with this. We've got 4 pass rushers now, and we're just going to lay these guys out on the field, and that's our 3rd down package. Mike Elko, every single week, is lining up in a different personnel in a funky, crazy radar-type formation at the line of scrimmage. You can't tell who's blitzing, who's not blitzing. And he doesn't just like run 1 3rd down and then another 3rd down, it's a different one. And then the next 3rd down, it's a different one. And then those are his 3, and he's just going to rotate those. He's got like a new one every single 3rd down. And then he changes it the next game. So when you're game planning for Texas A&M offensively on 3rd down, you can look at some of the old stuff, but that's not anything you're going to see in the upcoming game. And that's the NFL mentality I'm talking about. That's why NFL teams take half a day of practice every week on Friday, just focusing on that one down because it's so critical, obviously, to your ability to win games. And so, like, I love what they're doing on the field. Texas A&M, obviously, in defense and getting Scorton in from Purdue as a transfer was great. But just like schematically too, man, that's a tough defense to get ready for every week.
Okay, let's go back to a young gunslinger north of the border. You're putting up big numbers Were you playing for your dad? Was Dollar Bill your
Yeah,
coach?
Dollar Bill was dialing him up. he was dialing him up at Minto Field, Nepean, Ontario.
Okay, so you're starting to get calls. Our boy Jesse, there's some interest down south to get him down there to play college ball. What's your best recruiting story from
It
that
was
time?
probably the first. It was actually surprisingly not Steve Spurrier, which is probably surprising to a lot of people. You can only imagine what everybody's listened to his press conferences, and you can just imagine. I think the most memorable recruiting story was my first phone call that I got. I'll never forget it. It was like August 15th. It was like the first day coaches were allowed to call you in the morning. I get a phone call, and I had this little terrible, like little red and black phone with like a cord. It was just brutal. And I pick it up, and it's Nick Saban at Michigan State. And he comes on the phone, and I'm super excited, so amped. I just can't wait to get into it. I have so many questions I want to ask. Like, I'm just out of my realm as a Canadian kid. This is like the dream. And he gets on the phone, and he literally talks for like 8 minutes and 47 seconds, completely monotone the entire time, and it was like he wasn't breathing. He literally gets on the phone. He's like, "We really think at Michigan State, this is a great opportunity for you on the field. It's a pro style offense. And we'll give you an opportunity to throw the football downfield vertically and really show off some of your passing ability and really highlight that here. The Big Ten's an outstanding conference with great competition. You'll play good defense. NFL evaluators are here each and every week. Lots of friends in the NFL right now that can help figure it out for you once you get done here too. Also academically, Michigan State, fantastic. You can get a degree that you need. It'll help you at the next level. East Lansing, very safe place to live. We'll get you great housing here as well." And it was literally like 8 minutes and 47 seconds. The pitch was unbelievable, but it was so much volume. I just couldn't, I don't even know what he said. And that was it. And and imagine like if you had said to me, like, "By the way, dude, that guy's going to win 7 natties," just so you know, the guy that you just spoke to, that's 7 natties. I would have been like, I don't know.
So why was it Florida then? Like, who did you stay with?
So it was, Florida was on their way to winning the 96 national championship. Werfel was on his way to winning the Heisman Trophy. And listen, I went down for homecoming against LSU. Like, it was like October something. I'm down in Gainesville. It's sunny. It's warm. The scenery. And like in Canada in October, it's like minus 12, and it was pretty good. Like the Gators, like Werfel threw like 6 TDs, and it was like fifth. I don't know. They just smoked LSU at home, and it sold it pretty easily for me.
If the transfer portal was as prevalent then as it is, or as prevalent as it is now back then, would you have been like, okay, this splitting reps bullshit? I'm gonna cause it, because I think did you have the Mertz Lagway game where right. So they were splitting up series, and then we know in the other game against Mississippi State, I don't know if you had that one where they were going to give him like 3, 6, and 9 or something. And every time I think about it, I think of you, because I never played the position. I would despise that. So I think 2024 Jesse Palmer would be like, "Hey, let's start planting the seed that I want out of here."
I did it twice. Like I was doing it with Doug Johnson and then Rex Grossman like 2 years later. It was crazy. Like I was all about that. You know what's crazy though, man? Because my buddies, my boys on the team back then, we talk about it still today. Like in the late 90s, that was an era where I feel like if you transferred, that was like a
red flag.
Red flag. Yeah, I was going to pick another word, but yes, that was a red flag. Like that was I know what the other word is too. Yeah. It was like, you could pick a few. It was just like, dude, like back then, like just compete, figure it out, get your job back. Like you're trying to go to the league, like figure it out, get back out there, practice better, play better, and just deal with it. And just, seize the moment. Like if you had transferred back then, everybody in the locker room would have lost respect for you. And so, yeah, I mean, it'd be easy to say now, like, absolutely. I've been one of these guys. Like I was just talking about the guys that transferred 3 or 4 times. I would have done that. I would have gone where the most money was, by the way. I would have been like an NIL. Yeah, I would have been all about the NIL for sure. But I don't think I would have. I just think back then my headspace was like, I got to we had 4 NFL quarterbacks on our roster at the same time. And it was just like, I got to beat these guys. That's it. And I just got to get on the field and I got to get drafted and get into the league. And that's kind of how I thought about it. And that you don't see that very much anymore, I don't feel like.
And look, you got to the league, and without your mentorship, Eli Manning may not be Eli Manning.
That's true. That's true. Eli Manning would have, he would have missed so many. That's a good point. That's not talked about enough. Basically, forget Plaxico Burress and all these other guys that made him. Jeremy Shockey, I made Eli Manning. That's a good point.
To be totally honest, and I don't think you'll mind me sharing this, we were talking about it once. You're like, it was probably the best thing ever that they got me away from him.
Yeah, the best day of my Giants career and my worst day was the day that Eli moved into the same building I was living in Hoboken, New Jersey. That was great news and that was bad news all at the same time.
I want to talk about your career a little bit, a few minutes to finish up on this, because it was somebody who would walk the halls at Bristol. I think all of us that were there 5 days a week, and we would hear from the other people that worked in the ESPN umbrella, this is how it is. They'd be like, dude, you live in a major city. I don't want to hear about you, but there'll always be a new person on the scene. And your first year, I hope we're good enough for you to understand where I'm going with this. But your first year you were on TV, it was Jesse Palmer's here. He's working here. And then the second year you came back, it was hey, who got hot this summer? Jesse Palmer. You were so much better. And I don't know if you remember it this way or not. I'm not saying you were bad your first year. And again, this is kind of a weird question to even throw out in an interview or a discussion. But it felt like once you figured out what the job was, you came back that second year. And then I remember a couple times at Van Pelt, different guys, especially all the guys that love college ball, be like, who's just fucking awesome now is Palmer. He's awesome at it. Do you remember the timeline that way from the early days at ESPN?
Dude, well, first of all, I appreciate you saying that. But it's it's kind of like a quarterback too. I always felt the biggest jump you made as a quarterback was your first year. So true freshman year to your sophomore year, or a rookie to your second year in the league. It's just when things start to make sense. And it's the game slows down. And I feel like there was a little bit of that at ESPN. Maybe it's first year, it's college football live on Monday. And then you're doing deuce wraps on Saturday. And that's kind of you're driving up from New York and you're going back and you're watching all these games, but you just have to figure it out. You have to figure out the logistics of it. You're learning all the minute things of okay, I got to talk in 45-second sound bites. It's how to bridge to and all these different things, how to talk over telestrations. What's a SOT VO? How to look at a rundown sheet. I had no idea what was going on. And I was lucky because I got to work with people like you and SVP, and I got to work with, a lot of great people on the college football side and just sort of watch other people do it. And then it just kind of started to make sense. And I think in anything we do too, I think you just kind of find your own style. You kind of find your own way of doing it. And so it was definitely, it's crazy now that I've been there 18 years. It's been I feel like it's been a long time, but the biggest jump definitely I think was between that first and second year. I was getting lost on campus first year. Couldn't find the calf. I was showing up late to my halftime, trying to figure out how to get back to the media room or wherever that was where we used to do the raps with Stan Verrett. It was just trying to make up all that stuff. No idea. So it's crazy. I still kept my badge, by the way. It's the picture that I took my first year. That's circa 2007. Sweating from meat sweats, maybe a vodka soda the night before. And it's just I still have it as a reminder.
No, I still have mine. And every time I would lose it, they'd be like, do you want a new picture? And I go, no, I want to capture that excitement and hope that's in that picture.
Yes.
But the last thing I'd ask on it too, is that you're just a natural on television. And I think there's certain demeanors that work that are applicable to different fields. And obviously you've done the work with The Bachelor, and you've done the cooking stuff, and you've done a little travel, cooking things. where do you want this to go? Because you're so good at the football thing, but like we have friends that are in the business that go, if you can get over to that network stuff, or you like, is that what again, maybe you don't want to answer all these things too honestly, because who knows if your contract's up or not, and the leverage play of all these different things. But do you aspire to continue to like branch out into different stuff because of career or just interest?
I think it's what I'm trying to do right now at this point is just try to do things that I enjoy. I think, and just balancing it as long as I can. I feel like I have a pretty good balance now between the Bachelor and food, and then football. Like football is just it's just in my blood. It's just who I am. It's a passion. It's something I never want to stop doing, and I always have to be able to find time to fit that in and do it. Like an international travel food show would be like a dream show to do for me, down the road, like a la Anthony Bourdain somehow. The real kicker now though is being a dad, and I have an 8-month-old, and my wife was super cool with me like shooting off and doing all these different jobs for a while. She's not going to be so cool with that anymore. And so I have to find a way to it's like a Tetris puzzle. Like you're just constantly trying to like fit things together. But I really like the balance. Honestly, I love the balance I have now. And it's just a matter of trying to keep that up, I think.
Yeah. I can't imagine you not doing college ball though, because you really are terrific. And I think the best compliment that I can give you is that all the excitement is genuine. The excitement matches what's happening on the field, because there's guys that are hyper and pumped up because they're like, hey, I have to have energy for, these 4-hour broadcasts that we have now with all the time stoppages. But it always feels like your energy and excitement is matching the moments that deserve it. And
I appreciate it, man.
That's what I really like. And, hopefully, look, maybe you get some network gig and you don't have to do any of this stuff and you're in New York City full time and it's not a big deal, but love having you on Saturdays, man. So thanks for doing this.
Yeah, I appreciate it, bro. Thanks. I mean, I'm lucky too. Like Joe Tess, awesome. Katie George, awesome. Josh Hoffman and Evers and everybody that we work with. Like everybody cares so much about college football, and that helps. Like whenever you're doing something, if you're doing with passionate people, then it helps you be that way too.
Yeah, and it's just a fun deal. Like, hey, for this many weeks, we're going to travel through the South. We're going to see all these places, and it's going to be kind of cool full circle for you too. Playing in all these stadiums and everything, and having some point of reference. Are teams still not willing to meet with you if they're playing Florida?
No, you remember everything. It's amazing. I remember now I think it's good. I think 18 years people have figured out that I'm actually I'm not taking the answer the coach is giving me and like literally texting what they said to the head coach for the University of Florida, which I really appreciate. I ran into a couple of hurdles early in my career with coaches that didn't believe I wasn't going to tell Steve Spurrier what they were telling me, which would have completely blown up my credibility in the industry. So of course I never would have done that in the first place. But thanks for asking. I think I finally have crossed that hurdle in my career.
Okay, before we let you go, tell us about Tableau, because this actually, when I get the promos and I read the description and then I read it a second time because I'm thinking, okay, this might work for me.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this, getting to work with Tableau. Tableau essentially is a device that allows people to record or watch live or rewatch their favorite live TV or free stream programs on any device in the house. So for me, it's whether it's news or whether it's sports, reality TV, what have you. It's something that we use here in the family. There are no fees. There are no contracts. Emily and I have saved so much money using this. And it's great because I'm obviously busy. We talked about just how much I'm working now, and with college football or being away with the Bachelor or anything else. And now with our daughter, the only time Emily and I get to watch TV is at the end of the day. So we get to kind of, post up together. And when I get back on Saturday, like yesterday or a couple of days ago from calling South Carolina Bama, I can kind of catch up on some of the college football that I missed. And we do that together. So it's great for families, especially that are busy. And the fall is the perfect time too for sports fans out there. You can watch your local NFL team, obviously college football, and you get all of that free. You get all that subscription free without any contracts at your leisure in high def. And it's, for me, as a fan of football, it's a no-brainer.
Who do you have this weekend?
Actually not working this weekend. Bachelor duties overseas, which is a whole other thing now, dude. Figuring out the travel the last 2 falls with Bachelor and college football is crazy. Last year, I did an Auburn game. I had to leave Jasper, Alberta, drive 6 hours to the airport, fly 6 hours to Atlanta, drive 2 hours to Jordan-Hare Stadium, call the game, and then go reverse and walk in live to a rose ceremony.
That's reading a lot of defenses all at the same time. Like that's dropping back and going. Would I be better as the main bachelor or as a guy competing for the bachelorette?
No, you would be better in the house competing because you could stir it up. You'd be good for the drama.
I would leave immediately.
No, you wouldn't leave. No.
I'd be like, I don't like her enough. I'm not doing this.
No. You'd go on the 2-on-1 date. You'd be on the dreaded 2-on-1. You'd get a good guy sent home. That's what would happen. You would get like a guy that maybe she could end up with, and you would find a way to just kind of like just get it around the house, and you'd win the 2-on-1, and he'd go home.
Not if it was Chad. You lose.
No, Russillo, you're a matchup nightmare. I mean, just anywhere we put you, like it's just you're just a mismatch problem.
Maybe years ago.
You keep offensive coordinators up late at night.
Now they'd be like, "Where is he?" You're like, he's barely on camera. Like, I think he's reading again or something. Thanks, Jesse. You're the man. Appreciate it.
Dude, great being out with you, bro.